instead of 30.
Well, I think when you put his comments together with Secretary Bessent, what they're saying is the American dream is not solely based on our ability to get the cheapest junk we can from China. The American dream is built on us not being reliant on our enemy, but having jobs here, having better jobs here, having a better pathway for your family to make a better living for yourself. That has nothing to do with being able to get cheap junk from China.
What's happening, everybody? I wasn't able to get to this during the week, but I wanted to show you some clips from Thursday where Scott Jennings joined the panel on The Arena with Casey Hunt on CNN. Guess he needed a little respite from Abby. Scott Jennings expressed how critical it is for the American people that Congress passed Donald Trump's tax cuts in addition to continuing to close trade deals. Unfortunately, however, the rest of the panel steered all the conversation back to what if this and what if that and Trump's tariffs per usual, which, by the way, got great news. Just before I sat down to film, Scott Bessent said that they reached an agreement with China and the negotiations seem to have been really positive. So we'll get the details this week. And make sure to tune into yesterday's news channel this week to see CNN scramble to spin this win for the Republicans. It's going to be a fun week. Winning's fun, isn't it? Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings be the lone shining light on yet another failing CNN show. Let's go.
This is an impossible hand he has been dealt because uncertainty is not a way to run an economy. And, to tell a Fed chairman, we don't know, just makes his job impossible. As Phil said, he just has to wait and see. I believe the names that President Trump has called, Chairman, a major loser and Mr. Too Late, and threatened to fire him and then went back. Let's wait and see.
Scott Jennings, this reality that Powell acknowledged, where the signals that are coming in are scrambled and totally unclear. What do you make of it, and what is the level of concern among Republicans on the Hill who, as we've discussed, have not really been, fans of tariffs in recent, generations?
Well, I think the chairman should keep his pants on because the Secretary of the Treasury is currently engaged and the administration is currently engaged in high-level negotiations with 16 of the 17 most important countries. The 17th is China, and he's going to Switzerland to open talks with the Chinese this weekend. Obviously, the market isn't terribly worried about it. Over the last month, both the S&P and the Dow Jones Industrial Average are up significantly. So there's some confidence here, I think, in what Bessent is doing. I don't think all these trade deals are going to come quickly, but they are going to come. If anything is true about Donald Trump, it's that he was put on this earth to want to make deals, and he has created a situation where he now has to make deals, and he should and can make deals.
How much pressure are his people feeling to do that?
Oh, I think there's a lot of pressure and interest to do it, but it's positive pressure because we're finally resetting and leveling the playing field. You mentioned the Hill. Of course, Republicans are interested in the outcome here. They're the ones that have to run under this plan next year. But of course, they're also under their own pressure, which is to get their act together and pass the reconciliation bill. That's part two of a two-part plan. Rebalancing trade is part one. Cutting taxes and deregulating energy is part two. They both have to go together, and so they're under their own set of pressure up on the Hill.
I think that with the uncertainty, I think we can all agree that it is Donald Trump who caused the uncertainty, and now he needs to bring us out of it, and yet he continues to blame everybody else. Whether he blames the Biden economy, you said 3, 2, 1 before he goes after the Fed and blames them, for pressure and, for not providing for the American people. So I do think that Trump at some point needs to put pressure on his administration to deliver something fairly soon. I don't think that the American people have time to wait anymore. I think that we are seeing that, China we're essentially trade is at a halt with China. And so I think that it is fairly soon, as people have been warning, that shelves are empty. And so I think Trump needs to go back to his administration and say, if we don't have something within 30 days, if we don't, what is our plan B? And I don't think that that's happened from him yet.
What the president's been saying about dolls when he was on Fox News last night. Let's watch what Bessent said.
I would tell that young girl that you will have a better life than your parents, that you and your family, thanks to President Trump, can now be confident again that you will have a better life than your parents, which working class Americans had abandoned that idea. Your family will own a home. You will be able to advance. You will have a good education. You will have economic freedom. That's what we are advancing.
So I think I'm starting to understand why so many Republicans that I talk to like to see Scott Bessent as the face of the administration, because, I mean, that does seem to be the underlying message for the tariffs. Why is it so hard for the president to say that himself?
Well, the president has taken a very hard line on China. He doesn't think they're good actors, and he thinks that they need to be dealt with in a harsh way. And so,
but he's not
disagree with
talking
that.
about the Chinese when he's talking about these dolls. He's talking about kids.
But he is.
But he's
because
saying,
what
like, we don't need the junk. You don't need the junk. You can have $2 instead of 30.
Well, I think when you put his comments together with Secretary Bessent, what they're saying is the American dream is not solely based on our ability to get the cheapest junk we can from China. The American dream is built on us not being reliant on our enemy, but having jobs here, having better jobs here, having a better pathway for your family to make a better living for yourself. That has nothing to do with being able to get cheap junk from China. So I do think what their message is rooted in has to do with a long-term statement about what constitutes the American dream. And don't fall into the trap of believing that we have to be reliant on our enemy for you to have a dream of what? Owning a bunch of junk? The dream is we make stuff here, it'll be high quality, and the people who make it will make a fair wage. That's the American dream.
You know, it's great that we got a deal done with China. I mean, really great. And I look forward to hearing the details. You know, things are bad for the Democrats when what they're complaining about is a temporary pause on junk from China. Because as I've mentioned a couple of times, a lot of the critical goods that we get from China are in those product categories that have been exempted by China. And here's the deal, even that junk didn't get made in China. No one's even saying your junk would go away. We'd just find someone else to make it, or we'd make it here at home. But the fact that these hacks are pretending like not having non-essential cheap crap from China is a big deal shows how desperate they are. And I think it's a good sign that we're winning. But let's think about what products they talk about potentially taking a hit when they talk about shortages. All they talk about is dolls, strollers, and iPhone. Not to mention, that's just all speculation. It is really hard for me to believe we're even having this conversation about a bunch of crap from China when our grandparents and great-grandparents went through the Great Depression. Can you imagine going up to your grandfather and saying, "Wow, Grandpa, you went through the Great Depression? That had to have been tough." As you know, though, I can relate. I'm currently going through the great stroller shortage of 2025. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's something I seem to point out regularly. If there are any legitimate potential shortages of critical goods, you can bet your ass that CNN would have it scrolling across the screen 24/7. I don't think I need to remind you guys of this, but in case you need to hear it, just remember, when they try to scare you with this stuff, gas, no. Food, no. Medicine, no. Strollers, dolls, and iPhones. Let's get back to it.
American value if people in their pocketbooks today are hurting. That's a lot to swallow.
Can I just add one thing? This is really not about dolls or
right.
junk. It's
right.
about penicillin, which, a lot of our medication gets made in China now. It's about car parts. It's about phones. Those are things. It's not about, you only get 2 dolls.
I agree with you.
The family goes out to buy a car.
But you're raising the correct point. Is it good for us to be reliant on our enemy for medicine and car parts and things that go into national security implements? It's not about the dolls. It's about everything else. And we're so entangled with people who cheat and who are ultimately our enemy on the world stage. Detangling us and making us not reliant on our enemy is the point. And I know it's a hard message, but that's what leadership means, going out and giving a hard message when it will be to the benefit of the country long term.
But he's not of that song, or whether he did and he embraced it as his message.
So Scott Jennings, this seems rich with things that you perhaps, knowing where you stand, would have things to say about, because of course, the President of the United States has always had a specific formal role with the Kennedy Center, right? It's been, the stage for supporting arts throughout our country, obviously named for John F. Kennedy. There's a massive bust of John F. Kennedy in the atrium of the Kennedy Center. The President Trump, of course, went early in his second term. There's pictures of him standing next to this bust. I'm just curious what you think. In some ways, it seems like the culture wars that Republicans and Trump in particular capitalized on are pretty on display in what Jamie is reporting here.
Yeah, these people are too fragile to show up for work. The Kennedy Center is like America's theater. president appoints the people who are on the board of the Kennedy Center. We use it for all kinds of big national events, no matter who the president is. And so it's kind of sad to me that these folks are choosing to grind personal political axes instead of going to work at the Kennedy Center. I mean, most people in America don't have the luxury of being able to call in sick from politics, but it sounds like that's what these people did.
So
Well, I think that
Oh my God, a bunch of theater majors are going to boycott the Kennedy Center. I do have a message for those folks on their mini vacations. Do not sweat it. Don't worry. There's not a single American that gives a crap whether or not you show up to work. So there you go. Enjoy Fire Island or whatever. So I was just talking about what products they mentioned, and this lady actually said, what about penicillin? Okay, penicillin and other critical pharmaceuticals imported into the U.S. from China are currently exempt from tariffs, as are tariffs on U.S. pharmaceutical exports to China. So this lady either A, doesn't know what she's talking about, or B, is lying straight to everyone's face about something she hopes will happen because it could make Trump look bad. And if that hurts the American people, she doesn't care. She's rich. She got what she wanted. So I'm sorry if I don't buy your fake concern about Americans getting penicillin. Kind of a short one today, so I'll wrap up with this. After watching the Casey lady a couple of times now, I'm not even trying to be mean, but as a moderator, it really makes me realize how bad Abby Phillip is. Because Casey Hunt, she's still a CNN shill, but there are clearly levels. Because I rarely give a big sigh when she speaks like I do every time that Abby does. Like, this Casey chick will concede points, acknowledge wins, etc. Because even with this dark-haired lady that's sitting next to Scott on this show, I found it to be a pretty respectful, professional conversation. But anytime Scott and that same lady are on Newsnight with Abby, within 2 minutes of the start of the show, it's a zoo. So Abby might want to take some pointers from Casey Hunt. What did you guys think about these Scott Jennings clips? And also, what do you think about us striking a deal with China? Are you optimistic? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. Check out my other videos. I got playlists, and a couple should pop up on your screen. But also, for the first time in my life, I'm starting to get a little bit active on X, and I have a lot of interesting things to say. Anyway, follow me there if you'd be so kind. Otherwise, as always, I really appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your day to watch my video. It means a ton to me. Never forget Jesus loves you. See you guys.